Thank you so much for joining me on this video, and I'm very grateful for the likes and subscriptions that so many of you have shown over the past few days. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a movie, and we're going to look at one of my favourite movies, which is Jurassic Park, directed by Steven Spielberg in 1993. The film is based on the novel Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, who, interestingly enough, in 1975 wrote and directed a film called Westworld. This was about robots in a theme park based in cowboys, and what they do is that the robots go on the rampage. Jurassic Park is very much a modern retelling of that particular story. All that happens is that John Hammond, a wealthy, self-made millionaire, decides to recreate dinosaurs using a combination of genetics, virtual reality. These living, breathing dinosaurs are visited by paleontologist Alan Grant, played by the very affable Sam Neill, paleobotanist Dr. Ellie Sattler, played by Oscar winner Laura Dern, and of course the legendary Jeff Goldblum as chaotician, mathematician, Ian Malcolm, along with a couple of grandchildren and a very nervous looking Robert Peck playing a game warden, Robert Muldoon. More about that a bit later on. They venture into the park, and of course it becomes the classic pursue and chew genre. And of course Steven Spielberg is no stranger to science fiction. Of the 32 films he has directed, 25% of them are rooted in that particular genre. But what does it say about religion and philosophy, and how does this tie in with the channel overall? Well, as I said, I always think that movies are a great way of communicating ideas, least of all when it comes to the big questions. So one of my favourite scenes is when Dr. Ellie Sattler, Ian Malcolm and Alan Grant are there on the tour in one of the SUV vehicles, and what happens is that Ian Malcolm says, look, isn't it interesting? God creates dinosaurs, God destroys dinosaurs, God creates man, man destroys God, man creates dinosaurs. And Ellie Sattler chips in with, well, dinosaurs eat man, woman inherits the earth. As well as being very funny and a brilliant little comic scene, there's actually a very interesting truth behind this, because it goes back to the heart of this idea of science versus God and nature. If you go way back to the novel Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which I think was 1816, it's an extraordinary piece of work about how science and technology go up against God and nature. Shelley's novel was very much about Dr. Frankenstein trying to create something using the modern technology of the time. And in many ways, that's all that John Hammond is doing in Jurassic Park. But of course, it all goes wrong. You could read it at a very simple level as a morality play, as a morality story. If you overreach and stretch yourself, then, like Prometheus, we're going to end up falling flat on your face. And of course, things will go wrong very quickly. But I think that's very interesting as well, that even now in today's society, there's a lot of mistrust of science. Think about the anti-vaxxing movement, where we all know that the scientific evidence overwhelmingly, absolutely 100% says that vaccinating your children is the right and safe thing to do. However, look at how John Hammond uses technology and DNA and that genetic recreation to simply create what he sees as a leisure park. And it's very interesting, because I think how we use science, needs to have those moral boundaries. Now, whether you think those moral boundaries come from religion, or whether you think those moral boundaries come from rational decision making, maybe through humanism, or something in between, or a combination, or something else entirely. The point is that science without any kind of moral guidance is bad science, and I think that is one of the things that comes out through the film. Another aspect of the film which I think is really interesting is chaos theory. Jeff Goldblum delivers his line with absolute panache and that wonderful laconic way, and he is just an absolute mesmerizing presence throughout the entire film. He has all the best pithy one-liners and delivers his zingers with absolute relish and glee. There's a terrific scene where he explains chaos theory, and all chaos theory is, very simply, is this notion that if there is a butterfly in Central Park, and it flaps its wings, and that creates a tornado or a hurricane or a tropical storm elsewhere. So this idea that this micro accumulation of tiny little decisions and choices actually add up to a huge and great big consequence. So think about it a bit like this. It may be, for example, that you think that your decisions are entirely free. Well, are they? One argument is that we are a product of genetics, upbringing, social conditioning, cultural inheritance, and so forth. Think about it a bit like this. Let's say you have one child who grows up in an area of poverty. And by poverty, I don't just necessarily mean not having any money, but it might be, for example, a lack of education or quality education, a lack of decent resources and facilities like libraries and playgrounds and decent areas to to hang out, or maybe a lack of broadband or high-speed broadband. Compare that to a child who perhaps grows up with all these particular amenities and benefits. Well, if one of them goes on to be a success, i.e. the youngster who's had all these privileges, and by privileges I do mean access to broadband, a decent education and so forth, is it really the child's fault who didn't succeed when you consider the circumstances they were born into? In other words, all these little things that happen and add up, is it really actually our fault? And of course, the extraordinary thing about chaos theory as well, this idea that all these little things add up to something big and in some ways might be unpredictable, it throws up an interesting question in terms of the religions that believe in an all-powerful God. So, for example, if there is an all-powerful God, am I truly responsible for my actions? Because surely an all-powerful God would stop me from doing bad things. And then we start nudging this idea of the problem of evil and how do we challenge and deal with that. So it's a fascinating idea, chaos theory, and so well covered, not just in the movie, but in the novel as well. And then there's the issue of animal preservation. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that dinosaurs are actually real. We're going to see them in London Zoo anytime soon. But think about a broader canvas. There are many endangered species, from tigers to pandas to those amazing mountain gorillas. Well, is there an argument that rather than spending your whole time investing in protecting them while they're out in the wild and preventing poachers from getting from them, or make sure they don't get any kind of diseases, would it be better to take the animals that we have and actually put them in these huge wildlife reserves where they can be managed? And some would say that might actually be a better solution, because they might argue it's actually we're fighting a losing battle. Now, of course, when it comes to animal preservation, one of the things that John Hammond says while he's arguing his case for Jurassic Park, he says, well, look, if I was to genetically recreate and clone condors or another species, everyone would say I was doing an absolutely magnificent thing. But the point that Ian Malcolm says is, no, there's a massive difference, because dinosaurs were extinct 65 million years ago and they had their chance. Condors were not are threatened because of deforestation or the building of a dam. And if you look at endangered species today, it is through the actions of humanity, and there is a big difference. And I think that's a great thing to think about as well. So many religions value and respect the land and the environment around them. One of my favourites comes from Hinduism, where a small tribe were really attached to the trees that live nearby, and they're going to be cut down, and they literally hugged them. That's where we get the expression from, tree hugger. Okay, they were so desperate to protect those trees. I think it's a really wonderful image of how much they valued the natural world, and I think that's something that comes across in Jurassic Park. So my advice is, next time you watch a movie, have a look and see what themes are in there and how they may speak to about religion or philosophy in some way. If you've never seen Jurassic Park, by the way, please take the opportunity. It's a PG film. It really is just an absolutely magnificent piece of work, from the soaring score by John Williams to the amazing work on special and visual effects by the team from Industrial Light and Magic, who helped, of course, bring Star Wars to life. The amalgamation of CGI, stop motion animation and the big animatronics from Stan Winston, Phil Tippett and Dennis Muren really is an absolute delight. Until then, okay, please amongst yourselves comment, like and subscribe. but most importantly, enjoy your learning.